A major arrest is sending shockwaves through policy circles, and it also has a strong tie to India. That's correct. Mumbai-born analyst and prominent US-India expert J Tellis has been arrested in the US for allegedly hoarding over 1,000 pages of classified defense documents and also holding undisclosed meetings with Chinese officials. The 64-year-old was taken into custody over the weekend in Virginia, where the FBI says the sensitive material was found at his home. Now, Tellis is not just any other advisor, viewers. He was a key voice in Washington on South Asia. In fact, he was working directly under Republican President George W. Bush and consulting for both the State Department and the Pentagon. And now, cut to 2025, viewers, Tellis faces serious federal charges that could very well land him up to 10 years in prison. Now, he was once hailed for strengthening US-India ties, and now Tellis is in fact under fire for putting US security at risk. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for more on this. Vishal, starting off, if you could list down all the allegation that Tellis is facing and the possible repercussion that this Indian-born analyst faces.
Well, Arjun, this seems to be a really serious case. It has hallmarks of all these, hallmarks of cases that are associated with espionage cases. And the first one is that he's been charged with unlawful retention of national defense information. He had top secret clearance because he was, as you rightly mentioned, an employee of the State Department as well as a contractual employee of the Pentagon, which is the Defense Department. And that is how he accessed some top security files, and he has been caught on tape capturing, taking these classified materials, removing them, and also taking printouts of them. When his home was surveilled, almost 1,000 pages of classified documents have been recovered. So this case is already open and shut because he has been charged, and it seems highly unlikely that there will be any reprieve. He could face as much as 10 years in prison and also almost $250,000 in fine. That's just the beginning, because there are several things others also, such as a Manila envelope exchange was also caught on tape. So Manila envelope is a bigger envelope that are associated with these clandestine operations. So he was seen meeting some PRC, some people, some Chinese officials in the US, and when he left that meeting, he did not have that envelope. So this is so this goes to show that he had been under surveillance for a while now. The authorities were tailing him, and thousands of classified pages were found, and that is how he was arrested over the weekend in Virginia, Saturday, as you rightly mentioned. He had also planned some overseas travel on the day when the authorities raided his home. So he had it all worked out. He had planned it all down to the minute details, but he has been caught, and he was one of the top voices on the US-India ties. He was an expert, as we've been talking about, that he was one of the top employees at the contractual employee at the Defense Department, also the State Department, two of the most powerful departments in the US administration. So that is why he had top secret clearance, and that is how he managed to access those files, get a printout of them, and also hand some documents to the Chinese officials. This has all the hallmarks of a typical espionage case. How this progresses forward, that remains to be seen. But we've seen that the US administration has been talking about espionage cases at length. We have seen from CIA chief to the top official in the intelligence arena, Tulsi Gabbard. They have all talked heavily on this and said that anyone who is caught with classified materials will be charged, will be taken to jail. So we'll have to see how this progresses further.
Vishal, another very, very important point here is Tellis did not only have ties with the US, he also had ties with, policy spaces within India as well. How are these charges being viewed internationally, and how are, more importantly, they likely to be viewed by New Delhi and by India?
Well, the India-US ties had seen, some strain in the recent past, which seemed to be on the mend. As we've seen, the relations are back on track to some extent after those tariffs were levied. But this could further damage, because he is, as we have been talking about, one of the top voices when it comes to talking about US-India relations. He talks about the same matter all over the world. He is a highly respected a man when it comes to international relations, foreign policy. So this will definitely dent, the India-US ties to some extent, but we'll have to see how the Ministry of External Affairs responds to this, how they are planning a response. That will have to be seen. But this is indeed a dark chapter in the US administration.
Yes. Vishal, we've also heard about classified documents. There were allegations against President Donald Trump that he was holding certain classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago resort. We heard that in November last year, just before the election took place in the US. Now, is there any concern in US about how these classified materials are handled to begin with?
Well, that was a slightly different case, because he had argued in the court, Donald Trump, that he was in possession of those documents because he was the former president back then, so he had the right to an extent to hold on to these documents. But at the same time, this is a very different case from that one, because this man was obviously not one of the top officials of the US administration. He was an employee. He had that kind of clearance, but he was certainly not one of the top voices in the US government. So this will be viewed differently, and the fact that he's been caught on tape printing those documents, that is the biggest evidence, and that is what the authorities will argue against.
Vishal, he was also linked with think tanks and institutions like international institutions like Carnegie. Does this also open a line of questioning to these think tanks and institutions working across borders internationally?
Of course, the fact that he was being tailed by the authorities, he was being surveilled by the authorities while he was meeting these Chinese officials, that goes to show the level of engagement the authorities in the US had when it comes to surveilling this man. So we'll have to wait for confirmation on all of that.